Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and lover of all things tech, and Vizio's OLED TV has burst onto the scene trying to make a name for itself. So in this video we're going to compare the gaming performance to see just how good it is. Stick around. So today we're going to compare the high frame rate gaming of both of these TVs using my gaming PC as well as the Xbox One X. Now both TVs support both FreeSync and VRR, so they both have a level playing field as far as adaptive syncing of frame rates go. You can also check out my picture comparison video that's linked in the description. Now both TVs support HDR10 and HDR10+, but only the Vizio also supports Dolby Vision along with HDR10+. At least in the US. In Europe they've been doing that for a long time. I've left a link to the timeline in the description if you want to skip around in the video also. Alright, so enough talking, let's get into it. Alright, so the first game we'll be testing is Forza 4 running on the PC at 1440p at 60 frames per second. Now we're going to use this game to see just how good the motion handling is on both of these TVs. Now with everything passing from foreground to the background on the side of the screens, we can test how good the motion handling is, if there's any judder or if there's any ghosting as objects pass along the foreground and the background. It's also going to be a good test of contrast and overall image quality because the colors are so vivid and it's a very realistic looking game. If you look at all the trees and banners flying by, it's clear that there aren't any motion issues with either of these TVs. And even though the Vizio has its issues with FreeSync right now, which is enabled, there isn't any tearing or anything going on. Granted, this game is running at 60 frames per second, pretty much locked at this resolution, but it looks pretty smooth and there are no issues with tearing or slowdown. Keep in mind that the biggest real differentiator between both of these TVs will be their contrast performance, because as far as brightness goes, if you're playing in a bright room, then the Vizio will not be as good as the Samsung because of its anti-reflective screen and its higher overall brightness. But if you're playing in a dark room, then your eyes will adjust accordingly, and both of these TVs also have features to adjust the brightness based on the lighting in your room. So unless you game in a really bright room, which wouldn't be good for the Vizio's reflective dimmer screen, then the contrast performance would be the most important factor to consider right now. And although the Q90T has pretty good contrast performance for an LCD TV, it just can't beat the contrast of an OLED TV. But the colors still look very vivid, just not quite as vivid as the ones on the Vizio because of its higher perceived saturation because of its higher contrast. From my findings so far too, the input lag is also better on the Samsung than the Vizio, just slightly, but it is. My Vega 64 graphics card supports FreeSync as well as both TVs, so I'll be having that enabled, but the Vizio only supports 120 frames per second up to 1080p at the moment, and not for any resolution above that, which has to be a firmware issue. So until that's fixed, you'll be limited to 60 Hz on any resolution above 1080p. What in the world? There must be some HDMI handshake issue because the picture on the Samsung keeps randomly blanking out, and that doesn't normally happen. I'm still racing with a keyboard, by the way, just because. Alright, next we're playing Overwatch, which is a colorful, fast-paced, first-person game, so it'll really test the response time of both of these TVs, as well as just how they perform with all the chaos that regularly happens in this game. Games on this map are often really crazy, so this should be interesting. This is another colorful game with a lot of contrasting colors with an HDR effect that just pops off the screen. And once again, I'm playing Sigma, which is my favorite character to play. I guess I just like characters that have shields. Both TVs have great response time. I can't really tell a difference between them both, but I know from experience that the Vizio has a slower response time than the Samsung does. And again, we can see that the Vizio OLED is dimmer than the Samsung Q90T, but not by that much, which is interesting. Even in this comparison with the Q90T, which renders shadows with a lot of detail, the Vizio is actually doing really well and has a lot of detail in the shadows also. It most certainly renders more details than the LG C10, but you'll see that in the OLED versus OLED gaming comparison. Specular highlights are also great on both TVs, but understandably and expectedly, the Samsung has a higher peak brightness, so the specular highlights will be higher than they are on the Vizio. That said, the Vizio does create some very good specular highlights because of the infinite contrast that it has. That's a benefit of the OLED technology and it puts it to good use. Gaming on either of these TVs is an absolutely great experience.
It's playing again.
Hey there. Stay on the field.
Observe the barrier.
Hello.
Barrier in place. Back to me.
Don't stress that.
I will.
Oh, we got him now. Got him. He got countered hard. So although I went into this comparison with the aim of using the Xbox One X for the comparison also, I was having a lot of HDMI issues, and I'm not sure if it was caused by the receiver or the TV itself, but I just couldn't actually complete the test no matter how many times I tried, until I just gave up. Now both TVs were connected to the console using the Denon X4700H receiver, and it worked in the past on other TVs I've compared, but just not these two specifically. I know every time I actually connect two TVs, which one of them includes a Samsung, I always end up having some kind of HDMI issues. Not sure what's up with that. But as far as the performance of both TVs go, the Vizio definitely surprised me with its lack of support for 120Hz above 1080p resolution. Like I said, that has to be some kind of firmware limitation, because there is no reason why it doesn't have support for 4K at 120Hz when it has two HDMI 2.1 ports on the back, which are specifically labeled 4K at 120. So of course it should also support 1440p at 120Hz over HDMI 2.0. People have reported other issues on the Vizio, which includes raised black levels, so hopefully they can release a firmware to solve all these issues very soon. But the Vizio is an extremely good performer as far as picture quality goes in game mode, because not only does it have the contrast of an OLED TV, but it doesn't actually crush details in the shadows, so it has great shadow detail also. Unlike the LG C10, which is known to crush shadows, but I'll be doing a comparison between those TVs also. Now, I'd be remiss if I compared an OLED to a QLED TV for gaming and not mention burn-in, because that's a topic of concern for many of you out there. And the Vizio has features to limit the potential of burn-in with a pixel shift and screen refreshing feature. The Q90T, of course, does not have to worry about things like burn-in happening because it's an LCD TV. But that benefit comes at the expense of the comparatively worse contrast performance that you get from an OLED TV. I'm personally not worried about burn-in, but I know there are a lot of you out there who are, so it's important to know the benefits of each respective TV and their technologies, as well as the inherent risk associated with them. That said, personally, I do prefer the contrast to your picture of the OLED TV, especially in game mode. Let me know your thoughts about these TVs and the comparison in general. I've left links in the description if you want to check out these TVs or any of the other 2020 model TVs that I reviewed this year. And also, don't forget to check out the merch store, where you can get awesome home theater t-shirts like this one, as well as some gaming t-shirts as well. And yes, for those of you wondering, I will be comparing the Q90T to the LG C10. So I'll be comparing the Q90T to the C10 and the C10 to the Vizio, as well as this Q90T to the Vizio. A lot of comparison videos, right? Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and thanks for watching. Until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood Villaman saying be safe and peace.